What's going on YouTube fam? It's Angus here. Massive welcome back to the channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. This video today is going to be all about basically the 6 reasons as to, well, why you're not losing weight anymore. And what inspired this is basically just me seeing so often on social media and online and on the sites that I look at in terms of people asking questions and in the groups I'm in and stuff like that, is basically people asking, well, why can't I lose weight anymore? In other words, where you start off your health and fitness journey and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get lean, it's gonna be sick, I'm gonna look like, this person I follow, Insta Queen or Insta Dude, whatever it is. Like, you start off and you're on a high and then you start getting some mad shreds and you get some initial results, but then next minute, like, everything starts to slow down and you trial a few things to try and, get some weight loss happening again. But then next minute, just like things come to a grinding halt. So welcome to what sparked this video. So what I'm going to be going through is the 6 reasons as to why that happens. I'm going to go into a fairly decent amount of depth into each of them. So strap yourself in. Hopefully this brings to you some value in your situation, because chances are that if you've searched for this in terms of, well, that headline, chances are that you are probably struggling in the weight loss game. So fear not, Angus is here to the rescue. Strap yourself in for some sick knowledge bombs, get rid of any distractions, and please, if you have any questions around the shit that I'm covering here, drop a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going, and without further ado, let's get stuck into the content. So first reason, fam, is that you went too low too quick. So what I mean by this is basically, typically what happens is that when people get amongst a diet, they think, fuck yeah, well, if it's gonna get this amount of results from eating this amount of calories or this much food, I'm just gonna shave off, let's say for example 500 calories or eat half the amount, and naturally we think that we're gonna get results quicker, right? And yes, that makes sense in theory, but where that sucks in reality is that it makes adherence incredibly hard. So in other words, well, because you're putting yourself into poverty calories, what essentially happens is that, well, yeah, you're setting yourself up to have some almighty binges, YOLOs, and you're going to struggle hard to be able to adhere. But what actually happens also, believe it or not, is that when you dive right down, your body will perceive that this is happening, right? It will clue in and it will basically down-regulate a lot of your hormonal profiles and a lot of how your metabolism works and stuff like that, so that way you're burning less and less and less calories, and you've created a new maintenance intake for yourself. Meaning that for you to be able to keep getting results and move forward, you basically will be eating the equivalent amount of calories as a child, and be faced with not really being able to get anywhere, right? So that could potentially be what's happening. This is very, very, very common, and a way that you can actually get out of this happening is to, well, basically reverse diet for a period of time to be able to restore and create a new maintenance intake for yourself, so that your body no longer is in a state of perceived threat and will actually play the game. If you're keen to learn how reverse dieting works, basically you can be jumping into the upload section, scroll your way down a little bit, and you'll be able to see a sick video where I basically break down exactly how reverse dieting works so that you can apply that for yourself. Lots of really good depth and basically understand the theory behind it as well. So that's point 1. Let's get stuck into point 2. Point number 2 is that you are getting too immersed. See what I did there? Point number 2, you are too. Anyway, yeah, point number 2 is that you are getting too immersed and caught up in the scale fluctuations, right? And for a lot of people, they will weigh themselves, in a fed state and at random weird times of the day. And basically invest their heart and soul amongst what the scale is saying in that one instance, right? Whereas that is shit. Like, what you need to kind of understand is that at all different times of the day, your body weight is going to change based on your body, handling stress, recovering from previous workouts that you might have done. You might not have done a workout, you could have done one that, comes into factor, right? How much water you've been drinking, how much sleep you've been having, how much salt you've been having. All these little things will affect scale weight in terms of throughout the day to day. So what's really important is that, well, like, say for example, let's say that you weigh yourself multiple times throughout the week. What you're going to notice is that your scale weight will be fairly different each time that you actually weigh yourself, right? Let's say for example that you might weigh 75 kgs, right, in terms of your average at the moment, but then let's say that spread across the week though, right, you might have weighed 74.2, 74.9, 75.3, and then 74.0 5 maybe, for example, and you add all those up and you've got an average. But obviously if you're only weighing yourself once in a blue moon and you caught yourself on one of those higher days in terms of where your weight's at, like that can fuck with a lot of people and make you just think that you're gaining weight and everything's a waste of time and fuck this shit, flip the table, I'm out of here, I'm just going to eat a pack of, Tim Tams, right? Like what you need to kind of realize is that what's far more important and smart is to focus on, well, the trends overall. So in other words, add up all your weigh-ins during the week, do them fasted after you've done a shit and a bathroom visit and stuff like that first thing, and you haven't drunk any water, do it then, and then get a few of those from during the week, add up the totals, get the average, and compare that from week to week instead. That's way more effective, because that way basically what you can do is like you can compare 2 to 4 weeks worth of data and actually see if you're trending down or see if you're maintaining, you know what I mean, and then obviously make decisions that way, which is also what I do when I coach people, because this way is a much more accurate way of being able to gauge progress. But also keep in mind that scale weight isn't the be all and end all of whether you're succeeding or not, because a lot of people can actually be experiencing recomp, which is where based on their eating and their training they're actually losing some fat but they're actually gaining muscle at the same time, which is obviously a very cool scenario because it means that your body weight stays the same but your aesthetics and everything are changing, because well, that's happening. So keep that in mind as well. Number 3 is that you're trying to build a lifestyle out of fads. Now what I mean by this is that anything that counts as a fad is kind of something that sounds too good to be true, and when it comes to applying it, well, you realize that it was actually too good to be true, aka it's actually fucking hard to stick to, you're hungry, you're missing all your favorite foods that you're cutting out, you can't have a social life, and you're feeling restricted, and actually, well, you want to rebel and bail on what it is that you're doing, right? So where people seem to have a false idea and a false hope and kind of just like, enter into the game blindly, is that for a lot of people, well, you basically have that as your reality, right? So you've found this sick diet, it promises the world, it says that you're going to get lean, that you're going to have an epic metabolism, that if you take these pills or if you take these products or if you eat, from this finely selected little list of foods, right, that you're going to be able to then be successful. And these sort of diets work, don't get me wrong, like you will drop some weight, so it's great for like maybe a 2-week shred leading up to something where you need to be a certain weight, like for a weigh-in, for like a comp or something like that, or I don't really support this sort of thing, but if you're doing it for like an event, like a wedding and stuff like that, and you for whatever reason think you need to be a certain weight or drop a little bit of weight for it, well, by all means. But like a lot of people seem to think that you can build a lifestyle around that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, if you didn't have any sort of social life and you didn't give a fuck about food and you literally like eating the same small amount of foods every day and just are happy with them, by all means. But I'm sure that you listening, you love food as much as me. You want to have a life, you want to create something you can be happy with and just love food and not have to think about it. So it's like if you're in a scenario where your weight has stalled, chances are that your body has just adapted too well to the shit that you're doing. And fad diets are exactly that. Diets. They're short-term periods of restriction, they serve a purpose, but they're in no way, shape or form something that you should be sticking to long-term when it comes to trying to actually build a lifestyle that you can adhere to and have any sort of consistency with where you actually enjoy the game. Number 4 is that you're working against your body rather than with it. Let me explain. So when it comes to humans, right, believe it or not, when we're actually born, we are born intuitive eaters. So it's like we have these great internal hunger cues and all these sort of things that we are actually in tune with. But for some reason, when we grow up, we work against them. And what I mean by that is like, let's say for example, when you need to do a shit, right? You don't just like hold it in and go, no, I don't need to go. And you try and fight it and fight it and fight it. Like that's just dumb, right? Like, you know what I mean? And when you're really thirsty, you're going to go and buy some fluids, or you're going to go to the fridge and have a drink of water, like, you see what I mean? And when you need to pee, you know what I mean? Like, unless you're obviously in a public place and there's no toilets, like, you're going to go to your toilet and pee, you know what I mean? So it's like, the same should be the case with food, but for a lot of us, because of how restrictive we are around food and how fucked our perception of it is through conventional dieting and that sort of thing, right, we actually don't really have these cues anymore. Something that I teach my clients is to work with their cravings and with their cues from the early days, so that way we're building some good habits and an awesome way to see food that's going to serve them through their phases of getting lean and losing fat, through to maintenance and through to muscle building, and then into food freedom based strategies, right? So the thing to note is that, yeah, for a lot of people, because they're dieting via the conventional standard, which is eat this, don't eat this, eat at these times, or you're a bad person, you know, you will be worthy once you hit this weight, like all this sort of shit, right? We tend to lose a lot of our natural, bodily functions and bodily cues and that sort of thing. So if you can learn to work with your body and with your cravings, that's going to set you up for much better, longer success, and obviously promote your body being willing to lose weight if that's your goal, right? Because if you're kind of going against it, let's say for example that you are craving a specific sort of food and you're trying to fight it and you're trying to eat X, Y, and Z instead, like, yeah, that works until it no longer works, because then when you eventually get your hands on whatever that food is, obviously you enjoy it, and you're probably not going to be able to control yourself around it, and you will just next minute just bury your feels into it, and that will continue to build up that food as being a fear food that you try to abstain from, which is not wise. Now obviously I'm not like a certified binge eating coach, but believe it or not, that this is stuff that I used to struggle with myself, because back in the day I used to be like, I started my first diet when I was 13, right? So I was very, very overweight. I was a binge eater then, and I was also a binge eater, believe it or not, when I actually got skinny as well. But what allowed me to be able to overcome all of this is some of the stuff that I'm sharing with you in this video, and what you'll learn about if you check out some other videos throughout the channel as well. Now, last but not least, we have number 5. So not last, we've got 6 in this video. The 5th one is that you have created a cycle. Now, a cycle is basically a pattern or a routine or whatever that you kind of do without thinking about it or realizing it, right? So example here is that you've created, more often than not, like it may not necessarily be to the T applicable to you, but what I usually see from conventional dieters or men and women who are trying to change how they look and feel and are just going about it via what they see, from the media and stuff like that, right? They create a cycle of what I call binge and restrict. So this means that you essentially are restricting via the form of dieting that you're doing. So in other words, you're eating below your maintenance level of calories. That's essentially what a diet will do. It will have you below a maintenance intake of calories to some degree. Usually far too much of a degree, but to some degree it will, right? So you're going into a form of restriction. Naturally you can handle it for a little bit, but then it starts to get boring, or we just can't be fucked anymore, or like our life is busy, or we're just stressed or whatever. And then we go towards what brings us pleasure. And this is where that binge will kick in to some sort of varying degree, and it may only be small and it may be quite spaced apart, but as these cycles go on, it starts to become more frequent and it starts to become more extreme. And naturally when this is happening, you're not really giving your body any reason to let go of fat, and what will more than likely happen is you will actually start to gain weight, because your metabolism and your overall energy burn will go down, and basically your body's going to hold on to fat because it thinks that you're trying to self-destruct. So be aware of that when it comes to you self-reflecting as to where you're at in the game at the moment and why you could potentially not be losing weight. Last but not least, fam, in terms of why you could potentially not be losing weight anymore, is that your focus is just on eating #clean or healthy, and you've got kind of no concept as to whether you're under eating or overeating or not. Now don't get me wrong, if your focus has been on trying to eat as nutrient dense as possible, eating lots of protein, eating lots of plants, drinking lots of water and stuff like that, well then fuck yes, like this is awesome. This is a great place to start, and something that everyone should get some good habits around doing, especially when they're starting out their journey. But the thing is that it's going to serve you for so long, because you could easily be over consuming calories beyond your maintenance intake, and this is obviously where someone can then be plateauing and or potentially gaining weight and gaining more body fat, or they actually could be under eating heaps. And obviously if you're under eating heaps, your body can start losing muscle and all sorts of stuff, because you're in too much of a restrictive sort of world and intake, right? So this is where, obviously if someone is just focusing on the quality of the food that they're eating, technically to an extent, you're only really able to control how you look. If you want to control, you're only able to control how you feel, right? But if you want to control how you look, well then this is where like a good evolution-based thing to do next is to start learning about how calories works, energy works, that sort of thing, so that you can evolve and obviously be able to take better control about how your aesthetics look, how much muscle you have and how much fat you have surrounding it, so that you can get toned or shredded over time. And and obviously I've got various videos that will teach you this. You can check out my main featured video on the channel, or some other ones in terms of just like, we'll say for example, what Pokemon and weight loss have to do with each other in terms of how they coexist, and a few other cool ones as well that will educate you around how calories works, macronutrients works, thermodynamics as a whole, and naturally, well, the flexible dieting lifestyle, in terms of the key tag around it. So I know that it can be quite a messed up cycle in terms of, when you're dieting, you're trying to change how you look, you're trying to hit a certain weight, and you're on point, but then you're not getting results and you feel like a failure. Like, I've been there before as well, right? So I really hope that by you watching this video that it was of some degree of value to you in terms of helping you to understand potentially why you could not be moving forward. As I said earlier, if this is something that you want some more clarity on, you have questions around, please feel free to maximize the comment section. I'd love to keep the conversation going below. If you'd like to follow me personally and share in a bit of my journey and get some more frequent content and value and stuff like that, feel free to follow me via my social media handles. You can check me out on Facebook and Instagram. Again, a bit of an insight into my personal life, but also see a lot of my coaching tips and stuff like that to help you on your journey. But this is where I really want to extend an opportunity to you. If you know that you feel like you're fighting a losing battle and that you could really use some help from someone who has walked your path before and is a master in food freedom and just setting people free from the dieting suck hole and just loving themselves and food again, I'd encourage you to do either of two things. Number one is that you can click one of the links in the description that will take you to my store. In there is where you can get amongst some more free content, some low cost ebooks, and some various products that can help you. Or if you want to, potentially have me work with you one-to-one, there's a link that you can check out which will take you direct to my coaching information page, which you can learn a bit about how I work my magic, my passions as a coach, some insight into my backstory, and be able to actually book in a call if you vibe with what I'm about and you're picking up what I'm putting down. But either way, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, highly encourage you to check out the other videos in my channel and subscribe so that you can get some mad value from Angus Beef himself. If you're a returning subscriber and you've watched this video, drop it some love, let us know what you found valuable. Either way, thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time in the YouTube world.